The story of Ricardo Medina, the actor who played Cole Evans as the Red Ranger in Power Rangers Wild Force and later appeared as a villain in Power Rangers Samurai, has been known for many years. There are many versions of this story, so I'm going to give you the version that had appeared in many news stories across the United States, and then I'm going to tell you the version that has been given in the new documentary called Hollywood Demons. This documentary reveals the whole truth of what happened that day, and they show the evidence of what had never been said in the news. What had been published when all this trouble happened was that Ricardo Medina was accused of having taken the life of his roommate with whom he had been living for 2 months. According to the information, Ricardo was having an argument with his roommate, and in order for things not to get out of control, Ricardo locked himself in his bedroom with his girlfriend. After a few minutes, his roommate entered Ricardo's bedroom, kicking the door with the intention of hurting him. Ricardo had a medieval-style sword and stabbed him in the stomach. He called the police and asked for an ambulance, but when he arrived at the hospital, his roommate had already lost his life. In the documentary, we are shown the audios of when Ricardo gave his version to the police, and much of this story is confirmed, but he never talked about the victim being his roommate. In 2015, Ricardo was arrested for this event, but the police had to release him 3 days later because they had to do a better investigation of the facts. The version given by Ricardo and his lawyer at that time was that everything had happened in self-defense, but the evidence presented by the prosecutors pointed out that it was voluntary and not in self-defense. In January 2016, Ricardo was arrested again and charged for the incident. At that time, he was facing a possibility of life imprisonment. In March 2017, Ricardo pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 6 years in prison, but in 2020 he was able to walk free. All of this was all over the news in the United States, but, while some things are true, there are other things that have been omitted. The documentary called Hollywood Demons tries to tell some shocking stories of the actors that appeared in the TV shows, and, in the episode about Power Rangers, they talk about Ricardo's story. To give more details of this story, they included 3 important people: the director of Power Rangers Wild Force, a doctor expert in addictions, and the sister of the victim. Although there are other people who provide more information to the story, these 3 people gave shocking details about Ricardo. The first thing that is said in this new version about the events of that tragic event is that it was very complicated to work with Ricardo, since the director asked him to repeat some scenes because he had said the wrong dialogue, and even though they showed him the evidence, the actor denied that he had said those words. This was the beginning of noticing that Ricardo was not right in the head and that he could have the traits of a psychopath. After this, the doctor did some research on some interviews or videos in which Ricardo had talked about his life, and he found something interesting. Ricardo was talking about how troubled he had been as a child, and that for this reason he had started training in the martial arts, but this is not always a good thing. The doctor explained that sometimes when children are very restless and have a lot of energy, the family takes them to martial arts training so that they can channel all that energy. This can be a very positive thing when you can have all that energy focused, but at the same time it can be very dangerous when the energy is not focused. Basically, this means that a person who starts to be problematic since he is a child because of all the uncontrolled energy he has, if he does not manage to control all that energy by focusing it with the help of martial arts, it can be a big problem, because now he is going to become an uncontrolled person who also knows how to fight. The most important part of this whole story was the account of the victim's sister, and although some may doubt her words due to the fact that she is obviously going to defend her brother, the evidence supports the version she gave. She is Rachel, and she met Ricardo in 2014 through a dating app. At that time, she told him that she had a place that was dedicated to rescuing animals, and Ricardo told her that he was dedicated to training dogs. Ricardo never told her about his life in Hollywood or his performance in Power Rangers, so she learned all this later. One day she went to see Ricardo at his house, basically to spend time with him to get to know him better, and that day Ricardo said something very strange to her. Although Rachel never said exactly what Ricardo said to her that day, she basically implied that it was one of these very weird and uncomfortable things, and this caused her to run away from that place. After several months of that event, in 2015, Rachel managed to obtain a ranch to start expanding her sanctuary to rescue animals, and this ranch was in a very secluded place away from the city. When she obtained this place, she remembered her encounter with the dog trainer, Ricardo Medina, and even though she had decided to stop talking to him because of those weird words, this time she wanted to give him the opportunity at the ranch. Although today we can know all the events and it is easy to judge Rachel's actions, the reality is that one never imagines that these things could happen to us. Perhaps the words Richard had said to her ruled him out as her boyfriend, but perhaps they did not rule him out for her to work with him in the future. It is for this reason that she made a deal with Ricardo and told him that she would allow him to live on the ranch in exchange for him taking care of the animals and fixing all the things that were damaged in that place. Ricardo accepted the deal, but from the first day he was not fulfilling his part of the deal since he did not take care of the animals and did not fix anything on the ranch. Ricardo just stayed in his room all day, and on top of this he also brought his girlfriend to live with him, something that was not part of the deal. When Rachel confronted Ricardo about this situation, Ricardo yelled at her and threatened her, saying that if she tried to get him out, then he was going to abandon the dogs in the woods. It is for this reason that Rachel asks her brother to go to the ranch to fix all the things that Ricardo was not fixing, and it is at this part that the whole mess happens. The police had investigated the situation, but apparently, they didn't do the job properly, as they weren't going to charge Ricardo after he was arrested. It is for this reason that Rachel begins to do her own investigations, since she realized that no one else was going to investigate this case properly. One of the most important things is that Ricardo had said that Rachel's brother had kicked the door to enter the room, and when Rachel went to the house, the door did not show any evidence that someone had kicked it. Another evidence found in this case was that the victim's hands had deep wounds, and that meant that she had tried to stop the attack. Ricardo had attacked the victim with a 3-foot sword that he had in his room, and despite the fact that Rachel's brother tried to stop the attack, Ricardo thrust the sword so deep that it pierced the victim all the way to the back. Previously, it was also said that before these events, there were some workers who went to the ranch to repair some things, and one of the employees managed to talk to Ricardo's girlfriend through a window, and this made the actor very angry. Ricardo never allowed his girlfriend to leave the room, and these are small details that we should consider inappropriate behavior. Due to Rachel's investigation, Ricardo was arrested again, but he got a plea deal and was only going to serve 6 years in prison, although he only served 3 years. Rachel thinks that being famous helped Ricardo not to have a longer sentence and also helped him to get out in less time.